Now, I don't know what the big deal is. I think there are hippies that look just like this. Hello and welcome to my review of Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, starring Danny DeVito, Ed Helms, Zac Efron, and Taylor Swift. Guys, first off, I'm sorry I couldn't get this review up yesterday, but what happened was that I saw this movie, and then I went into Project X, and then about an hour or so into it, I got booted out of the theater, and I got home, and I was tired and pissed off because I got kicked out of the movie and all that sad stuff. So I wasn't quite in the good spirits to do a review, but now I am. And just as a quick note, tell me if you want a partial review of Project X. I did see about 3/4 of it, but that's not the movie we're talking about. We're talking about The Lorax. This movie centers on a young boy named Ted, voiced by Zac Efron, who lives in the town of Thieville, which is essentially a town that's run entirely artificially. There's no air, you have to buy air. All the plants are artificial, everything is, it's just essentially this entirely constructed world. And he discovers, because he's trying to woo this high school girl played by Taylor Swift, that there are once real live trees. And he goes out to find information on these so he can impress her, and ends up running into this old man called the Onceler, voiced by Ed Helms, who tells him the story about how he destroyed the land of trees despite the warnings of a mystical creature called the Lorax, voiced by Danny DeVito. Now, there have been a few Dr. Seuss adaptations beforehand, and some of them have been somewhat successful. The Grinch was alright, The Cat in the Hat was an abortion, but Horton Hears a Who was actually surprisingly really funny. This movie falls somewhere in between The Grinch and Horton Hears a Who. It's not quite good, but it's certainly above mediocre. It's decent. It's a good adaptation of one of Dr. Seuss's more mature books. Yes, I just used Dr. Seuss and mature in the same sentence. Mind blown. Now, what worked? First of all, the look and feel of this movie is what's the best thing about it. The visuals in this movie are really nice. It's got this really cool kind of hand-drawn but slash painted look. That's kind of like, it's very pop art. It always has something popping out at you. The environments are very creative, especially the Needville. That all the little sight gags around that are really inventive. Like, you have a guy pumping up a tree. You have a tree that's like a disco ball. There's all these little cool, like, kind of sight gags there. And I also like the environment where the Onceler lives when he's telling the story. The kind of like bright and shiny environment with all the animals and stuff. It looks really nice. Also, I like that they made this movie a musical, and I'm surprised that no Dr. Seuss adaptation has yet done this, because it fits in really well. And when you have an actor like Ed Helms, who actually really can do great comedic songs, it brings a whole new element to the film and allows the visual artist to be a lot more creative because the musical numbers are exaggerated. And I thought for the most part that the musical numbers in this movie were really nice, especially one called How Bad Can I Be?, which is really fun. Also, I liked most of the voice work in the movie. Zac Efron was pretty good. Danny DeVito is very funny as the Lorax. I thought that's perfect casting right there. Ed Helms was fantastic as the Onceler. The only person I really didn't like was Betty White, and that's just because I'm not the biggest Betty White fan. I feel like she does the same thing over and over again, and people give her praise for some reason. But for the most part, it was a solid cast. Even Taylor Swift did a decent job. But this movie certainly isn't perfect. The most major flaw in it is that for a movie that's entitled The Lorax, he's not in the movie as much as you might think. He actually, I wouldn't say he has a small part, but it's just like he's not as prevalent as you might think. He has an important role in the story, but he's not all over the place. In fact, the climax of the movie does not involve him in any capacity, and I just found that kind of weird, that the main character in the movie was not him, but it was this little kid. And while Zac Efron is perfectly likable in the role, I would have loved to see the Lorax come back in some capacity to help in the climax, so the movie would have felt more about him. The movie seems to develop arcs for all of the other characters except for him, and that's actually kind of disappointing. Also, I hate to say it because I am an environmentalist of sorts, it does get a little bit heavy-handed with the whole save the environment, and if we plant a tree, it'll solve all the problems in the world thing. It's not as heavy-handed as some people have been saying. I get it. It's a book about saving the environment, so obviously it's going to have a little bit of prodding. But by the end of the movie, you're definitely happy that they've stopped preaching to you. It's definitely a little bit over-preachy. And also, I feel like Illumination, who are the people who made this movie, or the people who made Despicable Me, rely a little too much on the stupid, cute animals, whether it be the minions in Despicable Me or the bears and the fish in this movie, to do kind of stupid physical humor and make kind of annoying noises, and that gets a little old after a while. Overall, guys, the Lorax makes no compromises as to who it's intended for, which is young children, but it's fun for everybody. If you have a family that you want to take them out to go see a movie that they'll all enjoy, this will be a good one to take them to. I'll give it 2.5 stars out of 4. It certainly isn't up to par with some of the other family entertainment movies, but it's certainly not bad either. And that was my review of the Lorax. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to my channel and tell me if you want that partial Project X review. And until next time, I'm Movie Kid Mike, making sure your time is worth your money.